Good morning, everybody. Let's see what today's going to bring, shall we? Ooh. Seven of Swords. All right, everybody. Today is a day to break through our fears. Leaving old patterns of behavior behind, changing what we've been told we have to do. Today is that day to really explore why we have the fears we have and the behaviors that we have. Now, I pick on fear because it's easier for people to understand in levels of 3. There are basically 3 types of fears in the world. There are fears that we are taught, there are fears that keep us alive, and then there are phobias. Now, fears that are taught are things that we as people are inherently not afraid of. We are taught to fear things. A lot of times we are taught to fear that which is different, but the most common thing that we are taught is fear of the dark. Now, humans are not inherently afraid of the dark. This is something that most often happens to young children, and this is because our parents would like a little bit of peace and quiet. So if you are afraid to walk down the darkened hallway to their room, they get a little bit of peace and quiet. Now, as we get older, we tend to get over that fear or find ways of getting around fear of the dark, and that is acceptable, and it is to be expected. Fears that keep us alive, there are reasons. I tell people that we check both ways before we cross the street, because if you've ever been hit by a car, you may triple check before crossing the street, because that fear will keep you alive. It is not something inherently to be afraid of. You know, they say you respect that which you fear, and this is true, but again, respect is a totally different bag of worms in this case. And then there are phobias. These are, for the most part, illogical. Something has happened and triggered in our brain that we are terrified of this thing, and we'll do anything we can to get away from it. Now, there are some phobias that you learn to live with because you can. Arachnophobia is my favorite to pick on because everybody knows what that is, a fear of spiders. Now, if you have arachnophobia, you do not have to go to the spider exhibit at the zoo. You do not need to get a pet tarantula, and it is perfectly acceptable for you to decide that bathroom now belongs to whatever spider just moved into it, as long as you have another bathroom you can use. I would not highly recommend burning down the house and buying a new one simply because a spider moved in, but again, you don't have to worry about it. Normally, they don't want to mess with you, and you don't want to mess with them. On the other hand, such things as agoraphobia, the fear of the outdoors, can greatly hinder your life, and in this case, you'd want to speak to a therapist. The Seven of Swords is kind of like that therapist. Let's find out if that fear needs to help. Does it serve you a purpose? If it doesn't, how do we break that chain? On the other hand, there are behaviors that we learn, and we need to unlearn them. Now, I'm not saying that all behaviors that we learn are bad, but you can say that when we are young and impressionable, we learn behaviors, and these are the hardest ones to break. Habits and habit-forming things are the hardest thing to break that we have had for the longest times. That is how our brain is now wired to do the thing. Now, imagine if tying your shoe included getting up, walking around the house, putting on your shoe, walking around the house again, and then tying your shoe. This is a behavior that, if you can change it, would benefit you greatly because it will decrease the amount of time it takes you to get ready in the morning. On the other hand, it's not a behavior that's harming anyone. Get your steps in, I guess. But that's the Seven of Swords. Let's see what we can change today. How do we change our lives for the better? Because we can. It's not saying get rid of everything that we do, just those things that no longer serve. Alright, everybody, have a great day. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.